Welcome. Last time we saw how to install PureScript Box. We got a sample application running. But all we did was we just copy and pasted the code, we compiled it, and then we tested it out in the browser. All we're going to do today is we're going to develop that same program, but this time we're going to take it step by step so that we actually understand what's going on. Now, our program can be seen as, if you like, a process, or if you like, the concurrent composition of several processes. So we have what we'll call the app process, which is actual application. We can think of this as the window, the browser window, that to be. Then we have two buttons. Okay, and one button will be the button, the button that increments, and the next button there will be the button that decrements. So you can just think of this notation as what I'm saying is I'm labeling this button decrement, I'm labeling that button inc or increment. Okay. These we're also going to have a label or a span, HTML span. So let's put that here, which will actually show the current counter, the current number that we have. And the counter, of course, will be our final process here. So the idea is our application runs and it displays the ink button, the decrement button, the span, which contains the text, and also it has the counter, which is not a visible component. Now, what should happen is when we press the ink button, the counter should increase by 1 and the span should refresh accordingly. And when we click the decrement button, the counter should decrease by 1 and the span should update accordingly. So that's, if you like, our bird's eye view or our overview of the system we're building. So the question is then, how do we build this or implement this in Pux? Well, the first step is we have to define what we have to define a type representing our state. And this program, our state is simply going to be an integer. So we will define and we'll call it the counter. So say type counter equals int. It's very simple. Now, the next thing is we have to define certain, events or things that can happen to our counter. And this is called, what Pux calls these, it calls, whenever something that happens, an action that you do on your state, or an action on your state, Pux calls it an event. So what we do is we just define, and again in the type, data event, and there are two events. There is increment event, and there is the decrement event. Now we have to define what happens when an event occurs. And to do this, we define a function which is called, we can call p. It doesn't have to be called this, but this is the general convention to call this p. And this function takes an event, takes a state value, which will actually be the current state, and then it returns something called f model of state event. Okay, now we're not going to look at what f model is exactly, but suffice it to say, obviously we can see that it's a type function that takes that's parameterized over the state and the event. In other words, it takes a state and then it returns the type. The type is f model of state of event. So what we're going to do is we need to import um, the this F model this F model oh actually yes, we need to import this F model type function, and that can be found inside the Pux module. So if I type import Pux F model, there we go. So there it is. So what does our full function look like? Well, you can just tell from the type, just from looking at the type, we can already begin to fill it out. We know that it's going to be full. Yeah, it takes an event. Well, there are two possible events. So we'll do it by case by case basis. So first, increment event. So increment event, and it takes the current state, which we'll just call n. Then what does it do? Well, what is it? It brings back a record. So that gives us a little yes. And this record has two fields. It has the state field and it has the effects field. Okay. Now we are not going to do any effects when the button is clicked. So when it's incremented, when the count is incremented, so we just give that the empty list. In more sophisticated applications, you can imagine that an event might trigger, for example, a network call or reading to a file or something like that. But we're just going to keep things simple here, so we don't have any effects. So this value of state field is simply the new state. So the state after the increment occurs. And what we would like that to be is, of course, when we increment it, we like the new state to be n plus 1. So there we go. So it should be pretty simple then what to do for the decrement event. Decrement n. And again, we know what our state is going to be. It's going to be n minus 1 with no effects again. Okay, let's just get some nicer wording. Oops, there we go. Yeah. Nice. Okay, so when our application triggers an increment event, the state will be increased by 1, and when our application triggers decrement event, n minus the state will be decreased by 1. Not a problem. So effectively, what we've done with these three functions is we've implemented, if you like, this part of our program, the counterpart. So you can think of all this corresponding to that. And in fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in the comments. Yeah. So, okay, no, I'll leave it like that for now, and then later I'll put in comments. Okay. So now let's turn our attention to this part, the buttons and the span. They are visible elements. Now, in order to deal with our visible elements, we have to define another function called view. I mean, of course, again, this has to be called view, but just to, that's the convention, which takes a state and returns an HTML event. Okay. Notice the interesting correspondence. This function, maybe if we change the order, it would, well, we can't because of the way it works, but you can see this effectively takes a state and then returns an F model state event. So if we just imagine, if I put that, let's just imagine that was some point to F. Oops. I hate it. didn't do what I wanted. That's what I wanted. F, yes. So in this case, F is F model state, whereas here F is HTML. So anyway, so again, we can see what we're going to do. What's got to happen? It's going to take view and then has to return HTML event. So what does an HTML event look like? Well, what an HTML event value looks like is effectively, you can think of it as our HTML markup, but with any events occurring in it, any events also talked about. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a div, HTML div, and then now first of all we're going to have our ink button. So we implement this with the following: button, then on click, and then const increment. So on click needs a function, and what we do is we give it the function that no matter what its argument, it returns an increment value, returns an event value, in this case the value increment. So in a more sophisticated application, you could have a function here, maybe it did some processing before it returned the appropriate event, but here we just keep it simple. And we also want to say give some text label for the button. So we do text, and then we give this to increment. There we go. So now likewise, it should be clear how to handle this button. Okay, it should just be button again, hash bang on click, const decrement this time, and then text decrement. Okay, now the final part is here. So sorry, not that, it's here. The span, that's the, if you like, the label or stretch of text that will have the current counter value. Now we want to put this in between our two buttons. So again, we just do span, and then you have to say what the text is. Text, and this is where it gets a little interesting. What we're going to do is the text will of course be the current state, which will helpfully be passed here. So it's going to be n, but n is an integer and text requires a string, so we're going to change that to short n. Alright, and that's it. That's our view done. So we've done this bit, we've done this bit, so the only remaining part left is, this app part. So here we go. The way we deal with that is in our main. Perhaps I should have called it main actually. Perhaps it would be better to call that main. Yeah, our main process. So our main is. Oh, before I do that though, let me. I've used a number of different functions, and I need to show where they are. So first of all, we had the HTML type function and the event type. Now the HTML type function is found in pucks.dom.html. Okay, And of course, well, event, that's just what we did define here. That's what we define here. That's that. Now the div, button, and span functions can be found in the module text dot smolder dot html. There we go. Now the function text, as well as this hashbang function, which allows us to access which allows us to add an event to the button, can be found in the module import in the module text dot smolder dot html dot markup. Why it's in a separate module, I don't really know. Maybe because we dive into Pucks, the answer actually into Smolder, because we will look at this. We'll look at the HTML functions, a little bit later. Not today, but in future videos. Okay, and that just leaves us with the onClick action, which can be found in the module pucks dot dom dot events. Oh. Okay, there we go. All right, now we're up to date. Now let's just do this process, implement this process, our main process. Main has type effect unit, and all we do in the main is we create an app value using the function start, to which we pass a record. Now the record has a number of fields. First, we got to tell what our initial state is. So we have to set the initial state field. So what will our initial state of our program be? So it seems quite reasonable to start at 0. Then we need to pass it our view, that is what actually rendered here. Then next we need to pass our handler, if you like, our event handler, which is full P in this case. And then we pass any inputs. Now in this case we don't have any inputs because it's pretty simple. So the inputs field just be an empty list again. Now I want to make a little bit remark about, of course, record syntax, because notice that you can have some fields labeled, like initial state is labeled and inputs are labeled, but these ones, these view and full P are not labeled. Now they do have label names. I don't know whether it's worth having a look. Okay. Yes, they do. And the names are view and full P. So if we did this, so we could do this one like this, yeah, view, but then we'd need to make it clear, because there'd be confusion. there'd be a clash because the attribute name and the function name are the same. But if we just don't label the attribute, so then PureScript will use the type of our value to figure out which attribute we mean, which is that's handy, but I don't know. I think it might be better to be more consistent. But maybe in future we'll see right where we'll do things differently. But for now, it's okay. The final thing we have to do, of course, is to get things running, and the way we do that is with the function render to DOM, and then we pass it the ID of the element in the DOM. So if we look at our HTML page, we can see that what we want is we define a div called app, and we want our page to, our stuff, our view, to render inside there. So we declare it here, render to app, and then we extract the markup and the input, which isn't relevant now because we're not doing anything, but we still need to pass it. And that is it. So we should be ready. What I will do, I will start up console, and then I will compile everything. Pulp browserify to and then .js. And we'll just hang on for that to compile. Oh, we forgot to import. In fact, it's not going to compile because we forgot to import some things. So let's do that. We need to say where start comes from and render to DOM because we haven't said those. So let's keep do that. So first, start can be found in the Pux module, and render to DOM can be found in the module Pux dot renderer dot react. Okay, so let's come back here, and yep. Ooh, let's just look at that. That's the same line 11. Well, let's look at line 11. Oh, of course, we don't need this anymore, so let's just comment that out. There we go. Let's give it another go. It shouldn't take too long because it's not having to do all the work because we did all the work yesterday. So we won't have to compile all the libraries again. Oh, text so HTML.markup not found. Oh, it's text.smolder.markup. There's no HTML. I'm not quite sure why those two are separate, but absolutely. Again, as I said, when we dig in, it'll become clearer. Maybe I should play some music while waiting. Yeah, let's see what we can have a listen to. Bit of a shame that you have to go all the way. You have to. Yeah, let's listen to music. Oh, something happened. Unknown type effect. Oh, I forgot to import the effect module, so I can get the effect type, or the effect type function. So, import effect. Yeah. Now that should really be it. I don't think there are any. I don't think we've missed anything else out now. Oh, we did, because we were talking about state. State, no, it shouldn't be. It should have been counter. So event counter. Counter. Yeah. When the counter is the state, maybe I should just call it state for this, just like I did an event. What do you think? Okay, we'll leave it as counter for now. I think, because I think state is a bit too abstract term. Just check. And that really should be it. But of course, we have to wait for it to. Finish compile. Yeah, that was a thing. Now, it definitely will work. But while waiting, why not say the scale G? This one. Can you hear this? Whoops. As you can see, it's a bit hard. Okay, let's try it again. Obviously, I haven't been practicing my scales. Let's try it again. Still okay. What the? Another error? What's going on? Oh, it should be. Oh, I should just have changed it to state. me have a look. Okay, well, while we're waiting, let's have a look at the Puck's homepage. Okay. Okay. So, the building. So, well, what's interesting to me, it says here that Pucks, you can do hot reloading. So that's something I'm gonna have to look into. So that's something I definitely want to try out. Hot reloading. But what I do intend to do in the future though is I want to look a bit more at the browserifying. If you recall from yesterday, browserifying is of course when it basically puts all the JavaScript together into one file. And now, if we go to our project, okay, got counter, and if we come to index.html, there we go. And it would be nice if I go to the inspector. Is that the place to go for? Yes. Okay. You notice? Yep. Can you see that it's inside the app, the David Load app, that our button and our span and our buttons have been rendered, which is as we discussed before. Okay, so and let's just try it out. Yep. Yep. That's nice. Okay, so excellent, it works. So just to recap, we've seen how to implement a simple program, a simple web application in using Pucks. Basically, we have to define our state, what our state our application will be. We have to define the events that can occur that can change the state. We have to then show how those events change the state. We then define our view, what our user will actually see, and then we finally get the whole thing running in our main function. So that wasn't too bad. So I think what we'll do next time is we will look at I want to look at we'll concentrate on views, because I think that what we have to do is to look at views and sort of like see how we can do some HTML and maybe some CSS as well in Pucks. I think after we've done it, then we'll go to more interactive stuff. Well, thank you very much. Until next time, goodbye and God bless.